It is a warm, peaceful summer evening at your dacha. The windows are wide open to let in the cool night air, and a single lamp casts a warm glow across the room. Suddenly, the quiet atmosphere is shattered by a heavy, chaotic rustling sound. Out of the darkness, a massive, terrifying silhouette blasts through the window screen, suspended on an impossible tangle of thread-like legs the length of a human palm. It begins to fly erratically, violently slamming against the ceiling, bouncing off the walls, and aggressively dive-bombing right toward your face. Instantly, your survival instincts kick into overdrive. A wave of raw, primitive panic ripples through the room, accompanied by that terrifying childhood warning echoed in thousands of suburban backyards. Watch out! It's a mutant malaria mosquito! If it bites you, you're dead! Driven by sheer terror, you frantically scan the room, grab a heavy rolled-up magazine or a bath towel, and smash the giant flying intruder against the wall with all your might. This explosive, defensive hostility is fueled by a massive, near-universal cultural myth, the stubborn, uneducated belief that the crane fly is a highly toxic, aggressive biological monster. We look at its imposing scale and structural resemblance to a mosquito and immediately assume it is an evolutionary nightmare, a blood-sucking phantom designed to hunt mammals and inject lethal diseases directly into our bloodstream. But that frantic, emotionally driven reaction is a monumental, profoundly uneducated lie. Not even close. In that exact fraction of a second when you brought that heavy towel crashing down, you didn't neutralize a dangerous predator. You systematically executed a completely defenseless, highly delicate vegetarian that is physically, anatomically incapable of harming a single human being. While you are locked in a state of blind terror, treating this giant flyer as a toxic enemy, the insect is actually living out a chaotic, high-stakes nightmare of its own. Trapped inside a strange concrete structure, blinded by artificial lights, and desperately searching for a way out. Far from being a lethal vector of disease, this clumsy walker is entirely harmless, lacking a single jaw, tooth, or venomous stinger. The moment you strip away the backyard myths and crack open the true high-stakes science of its life cycle, your entire perception of this misunderstood giant will be completely turned upside down. Think about that for a second. The exact creature you violently hunt down with towels is actually an ultra-sensitive ecological shield, engineered by nature to operate as a living indicator of a perfectly clean environment right outside your window. To fully dismantle this deeply hardwired summer panic, we have to strip away our visual assumptions and confront a glaring biological reality. The crane fly is absolutely, fundamentally, not a mosquito. While its alarming scale and long-limbed silhouette trick our primitive defense mechanisms into sensing an immediate predatory threat, science recognizes this insect as an entirely independent family known as Tipulidae. It is a completely peaceful, non-aggressive giant. Visually and behaviorally, it functions less like a stealthy blood-sucking parasite and more like a deeply clumsy, gentle vegetarian, balancing awkwardly on giant organic stilts. When you zoom in on its anatomy using a high-magnification macro lens, the terrifying urban legend completely unravels into dust. A female malaria mosquito possesses a specialized, needle-sharp, piercing proboscis designed to puncture mammalian flesh and draw blood. The crane fly, however, completely lacks this equipment. It features no piercing mouth parts, no jaws, no chewing teeth, and absolutely zero predatory weaponry. Furthermore, its dietary habits are completely harmless to your household ecosystem. Depending on the specific species, an adult crane fly either feeds exclusively on liquid flower nectar, operating as an essential, low-profile nocturnal pollinator that helps sustain your backyard flora, or вовсе отказывается от еды. Many species emerge into their adult form with a completely non-functional digestive tract, living out their brief remaining timeline solely on the energy reserves they accumulated during their childhood phase. They do not drop into your warm living room to launch a calculated hunting sweep or inject diseases into your skin. They are entirely focused on a desperate, high-stakes mission to locate a mate and ensure the survival of their lineage before their internal fuel clock completely runs out. You are not dealing with a monstrous mutated vector of sickness. You are dealing with a completely vulnerable, fragile nomad that is totally incapable of biting even the smallest insect in your garden. However, committing entirely to this gentle, non-aggressive lifestyle while maintaining such massive, awkward proportions forces the crane fly to carry a crushing physical burden, turning its day-to-day movement into a fragile evolutionary tragedy where its greatest defense asset can instantly become its worst nightmare. This extreme anatomical design leaves the crane fly carrying an extraordinary physical burden, turning its iconic, hair-thin legs into both its single greatest survival asset and its most devastating evolutionary curse. Looking at its oversized silhouette, those long limbs appear completely ridiculous and unmanageable, causing it to bounce awkwardly across your ceiling and fly with a slow, heavy drag that makes it incredibly vulnerable to hungry birds, bats, and frogs. To survive in a world filled with high-speed predators, this insect relies on a brilliant, high-stakes emergency escape mechanism known as autotomy. The cranefly's long legs are engineered with highly specialized, built-in structural fracture points at the very base of the joints. If a predatory bird snaps its beak around one of these limbs, or a human hand forcefully traps it against a window, the leg instantly detaches from the body. The cranefly drops the isolated limb as a sacrificial decoy to confuse the attacker, and immediately utilizes its remaining strength to escape into the dark. However, this critical escape route is coupled with a permanent, deeply tragic physical reality. The cranefly can never regenerate its lost limbs. Once a leg snaps off, it is gone forever. Every single time a panicked human aggressively strikes at this giant flyer with a heavy towel or grabs it by its limbs, they aren't just scaring the insect, they are permanently crippling a fragile wanderer. The underlying drama of its existence is magnified by the fact that these hair-thin limbs are so incredibly delicate that the cranefly frequently mutilates itself without any human intervention. Simply flying through a dense patch of backyard grass, getting caught in a light summer breeze, or bumping too hard against your porch glass can cause its fragile joints to fracture. It is a striking evolutionary contradiction. This creature is born a giant of the insect world, yet it spends its incredibly brief adult life cycle operating as the most fragile, easily broken entity on your property. It wanders through your dacha structures in a state of constant physical vulnerability, carrying zero weapons to defend itself. Yet it is precisely this sensitive, clean-living biological architecture that makes it a powerful asset the moment you look beneath the forest floor. While this fragile adult giant lives out its brief timeline in constant physical vulnerability above ground, a massive, heavy-duty ecological operation is quietly unfolding right beneath your feet. This is where the cranefly's true, unmatched power shifts into active duty. The vast majority of a cranefly's life cycle is actually spent hidden beneath the soil or at the muddy bottoms of fresh woodland streams, existing as a robust, incredibly dense larva. Lacking any delicate features, this subterranean phase functions exactly like a high-powered, industrial-strength underground harvesting combine. These larvae populate healthy soils by the millions, operating with a ravenous appetite focused exclusively on dead biological debris. They do not damage living plant roots or attack garden crops. Instead, they systematically consume tough, rotting autumn leaves, decomposing twigs, and fibrous, decaying wood that other soil organisms find completely impossible to break down. By grinding through this dense organic garbage with surgical efficiency, they convert dead forest waste into rich, nutrient-dense humus far faster than traditional earthworms, single-handedly fueling the fertility of the upper soil layers. But the absolute peak of this underground action sequence is the cranefly's role as a live, flawless biological ecotester for your entire property. These larvae are genetically engineered with a hyperacute, near-instant sensitivity to chemical toxins. Their delicate respiration systems mean they are entirely incapable of surviving in environments contaminated by synthetic agricultural additives. If a plot of land or a nearby water source is even slightly tainted by harsh industrial fertilizers, toxic chemical runoffs, or aggressive synthetic pesticides, the local cranefly larva population is instantly eradicated. They cannot adapt to pollution. Therefore, when you step out onto your porch and see these giant, long-legged flyers bouncing along your fences or resting on your window screens, you aren't witnessing a terrifying insect invasion. You are looking at a living, breathing, premium ecological certificate of excellence for your land. Their heavy presence is definitive proof that the soil beneath your lawn and the water in your local streams are exceptionally pure, clean, and entirely free from toxic human contamination. When you reframe your frantic veranda encounter through this macro-level environmental data, the primitive backyard narrative that the cranefly is a mutated, dangerous enemy completely collapses. That oversized, noisy silhouette bumping clumsily against your window glass is not a toxic threat. It is one of the most innocent, entirely weaponless giants in the insect kingdom, a delicate nighttime pollinator whose presence serves as a definitive biological shield for your land. Where our irrational, childhood-driven fears recognize an aggressive malaria monster that must be crushed with a rolled-up magazine, evolutionary science reads a flawless quality seal. Its extreme sensitivity to synthetic additives means it can only multiply in a genuinely pure ecosystem, acting as a real-time indicator that your soil and water remain beautifully clean and unpolluted. Your immediate instinct to duck, scream, or reach for a heavy towel when this long-legged helicopter dive bombs your living room is a completely natural reaction to its massive scale. But before you strike with thoughtless violence and permanently shatter its fragile, non-regenerative joints, pause and look at the absolute lack of threat right in front of your eyes. You are looking at a vulnerable, short-lived nomad that has left its vital underground recycling campaign just to navigate the night air, completely devoid of stingers, jaws, or any chemical weapons to harm a single human being. Go ahead and protect your indoor comfort. Turn down the bright patio lights, keep the screen doors tightly sealed, and maintain clear boundaries. But drop the primitive, uneducated hatred against this awkward walker. The next time this giant, stilt-legged phantom glides into your space, put down the towel, suppress the blind panic, gently cup a clear glass over its fragile frame, and slide a piece of paper underneath to release it back into the cool night air. Let it complete its simple, short-term mission in the garden, and take a moment to celebrate the fact that your backyard is operating in peak ecological health. If this high-stakes deep dive completely transformed the way you view the fragile giants bouncing across your summer screens, hit that like button and subscribe. Nature never engineers an ultra-sensitive bioindicator without an extraordinary environmental purpose. And sometimes, the clumsy flyer that terrifies you the most is the definitive proof that your personal sanctuary is perfectly clean.